Do you know what a microaggression is? Okay, so I'll give you an example of a microaggression. It's like a racism thing, I think. Or I think it could be against any identity. So let's say you're walking down the street and you see a person of a certain ethnic minority group. So, a woman would then like move her purse to the other side, or like afterwards a guy would like touch his pockets to make sure everything's all there. That's called a microaggression. The idea being that because you saw someone you associated with some kind of, behavior, you are being racist towards them by doing that. If you see somebody, it's actually really interesting. If you're walking down the street and you see somebody who is a certain, minority, so you cross the street because you're worried, that is a microaggression. The idea being that that person can see you do it and says, man, they're being racist towards me, they don't want to walk past me. Never mind that, this is a legitimate complaint a lot of people have. Never mind the fact that sometimes it's just dangerous at night and it doesn't matter what your race is. Before we get into this story is basically about UW-Madison encourages students to report microaggressions. I want to point out that one of the biggest problems with racism is that individuals perceive racism against them. Not just racism, but sexism too. And there's no way for us to control for this in a study because people are not able to change their race or gender necessarily, right? There have been a lot of trans people who have explained people behave differently towards them. One of the problems with that though is in order for us to get a really accurate understanding of how people interact with each other, we need external observers. The person observing behavior from others towards themselves will always be biased, especially if they're taking hormone therapy. It's possible that they will perceive things differently. So if we really want to control for this, we need someone else to observe the behavior. So maybe that exists, but I just want to point out, I've talked about it in many videos. I have friends who think things are racism that I have experienced too and wouldn't call racism, right? There's a story of a guy I know who he was asked to go to the store, he was going to the store to use a bathroom and was asked to grab a cheeseburger at a Burger King. And the dude freaked out calling it racist. And I was confused because my friends always say, hey, while you're over there, can you grab me a cheeseburger? But to this guy, it was racism. To me, it wasn't. And so, honestly, it wasn't racism. And I have to wonder then why he thought it was. And it's, microaggressions. Asking someone to get you a cheeseburger from Burger King while they go is a microaggression. So let's check out this story. The University of Wisconsin-Madison allows students to report microaggressions when filling out a bias incident report form alongside categories such as vandalism and physical assault. During the spring 2016 semester, students reported 66 hate bias incidents, the majority of which involved racial insults, microaggressions, and/or derogatory language. Okay, I don't know. Is it necessary to report someone for insulting you if it's racist? Me, I wouldn't do it. You can call me whatever you want. I don't care. And I've been attacked. My family's been dealt with problems from racists, and microaggressions, on the other hand, should never be reported, in my opinion. And I'm really surprised that there exists a group of people that genuinely believe microaggressions should be reported, considering the fact that microaggressions are literally unintentional. So it's like you're walking down the hallway, and then someone sees you and says something like, oh, you must have aced your math test, Tim. Why? Oh, I don't know, I was just assuming. Oh, because I'm Asian? Ooh, microaggression. Oh, racism. I'm gonna report you and get you kicked out of school. In 2017, several students even filed reports about a statistics exam question because it presented a hypothetical scenario in which the government was building a wall to prevent kangaroos from jumping over the border. There are many countries on this planet that have border control. Is it a microaggression? No, you know what the microaggression is? Them complaining is a microaggression because they are microaggressing against Mexicans and people in Central America and South America by implying that they're all wall jumpers. That's a microaggression. How dare you complain? That is the microaggression. Using the school's bias incident form, students wishing to report bias or hate incidents are asked to describe the incident by choosing from a list of provided categories, including microaggression, non-threatening, threatening language, vandalism, physical assault, and more. The form then asks if the student wishes to be contacted by the bias response and advocacy coordinator, while also giving students the opportunity to explain who was involved in the incident. So let me people are paying for this. I didn't go to college. I went to a community college for like 2 months, and then I was like, that was a waste of time. And I started to realize when I got older that no one really knows anything, that everyone's kind of winging it. You know, it was interesting when I was younger and I'd look up to adults and think, wow, these people are really good at what they do. They know what they're doing. How do they do it? And I would ask, my dad questions. He would always have the answers. And the reason for it is I was actually asking really simple questions as a young person. How do I open a bank account? Well, of course I know how to open a bank account. But when you get to a certain age where you're actually paving the way for future generations, when you are in the system like a 32-year-old like I am now, there's no one I can ask about how to make something work, okay? How do I make a media empire? How do I build something up and bring people to make them more rational? I can ask all the people in the world, they'll have opinions, but most of them I realize don't know what they're talking about. So why go to school? Especially when schools are dumping tons of your kids' money and your money into bias advocacy nonsense and diversity initiative officers, just millions of dollars into jobs that don't actually do anything. They don't do anything. This is what I call marketing by morality. So, Ghostbusters, great movies. Back in the day, I was a little kid, I watched them, I loved them. They want to reboot Ghostbusters, so they say, you know what? Let's make all of the Ghostbusters women. And then you think, okay, first, it was a reboot, right? Here, I'll tell you my problem with Ghostbusters. I originally thought they were going to reboot it with an all-female cast. I have no problem with that, that's cool. But I thought it was going to be the Ghostbusters hire replacements, and it just so happens the replacements are women. That's fine. But instead, they remade Ghostbusters. And they made all the characters women, and the movie was really bad. Okay? It was really bad. I was just flabbergasted at how awful it was. And then I started to, question, why is it that so many people on the left were praising it? Because it checked the right boxes. Okay, we did an all-female reboot, therefore it's diverse, which it's not really, but there you go, it's a good movie then. And then you see movies that have diversity or a small cast, so you can't really get diversity, and then it's about guns, like Death Wish, and they're like, this is the worst movie in the world. No, Death Wish was an enjoyable popcorn flick, but because it didn't check the right boxes, white dad, buys guns, kills people, can't have that. This is marketing by morality. This is what universities are doing. They want people to think they're on the right side, they're doing moral good, so they're setting up these programs to make people feel like something is getting done, but it doesn't actually do anything. These are universities that, instead of actually solving the problems, are bloating the problems with things that make no sense. Why do we need to report microaggressions? We don't. We can tell people like, hey, if you don't like microaggressions, you can be like, this is what a microaggression is, just so you're aware of it in the future, and then people can try to do better. Personally, I get it. I understand what a microaggression is, and I try to be conscious of bias and things like that. That's why I think Brett Weinstein's so great. He talks about this kind of stuff. But the idea that someone is going to report you for microaggressing, well, now we're just getting into crazy territory. Crazy town, where I can't imagine how UW's bias response team focuses on hate crimes and bias incidents campus-wide, responding to incidents on campus by supporting the victim, targeted individual, and coordinating with campus police and the university's conduct office, with the ultimate aim of preventing bias incidents from taking place on campus. What are you going to do? If somebody wants to cross the street when you're walking past them, what are you going to do? You can call the cops. You're going to report them to the office and be like, that guy crossed the street when I was walking towards him. Oof. Sorry, you're suspended. That is a hate bias incident. In 2017, several students even filed bias reports about a question. Okay, we read that part. Okay, so let's see how they wrap this thing up. Although the expression of an idea or point of view may be offensive or inflammatory to some, it is not necessarily a violation of law or university policy, the website clarifies. The university values and embraces the ideals of freedom of inquiry, freedom of thought, and freedom of expression, all of which must be vitally sustained in a community of scholars. While these freedoms protect controversial ideas and differing views, and sometimes even offensive and hurtful words, they do not protect acts of misconduct that violate criminal law or university policy. Well, I hope microaggressions are not a violation of either of those things. Could you imagine these young people getting into office and actually passing laws making microaggressions illegal? Could you imagine walking down the street, seeing somebody moving your bag or purse, and then all of a sudden the cops are like, whoa, we saw you move your bag, and we're going to go ahead and assume it's because you're a racist. Yet, while the website states that hate bias incidents must be severe, pervasive and objectively offensive, it also notes that they can occur even if the act itself is unintentional or delivered as a joke, prank, or having humorous intent. Intent doesn't matter. Context doesn't matter. All that matters is that the authority can tell you what you did was wrong and can punish you for it, and that is a big problem. Punishment, retribution, justice, rehabilitation, these things work when people know what they did was wrong and know how to fix it. But if someone is trying to tell a joke, that means they believe it will make people happy. Jokes make you happy. They make you laugh. Ha-ha, you know? If someone tells a joke and someone gets offended, the appropriate response is, hey man, you should chill out on the joke. It's kind of insensitive. Oh, sorry about that, dude. And if they don't want to do it, then don't hang out with them. But jokes, for the most, sometimes people are the butt of jokes, for sure. And sometimes jokes, make fun of, they make fun of people. I get it. But the idea that you could have humorous intent and get in trouble. Imagine that future, if you will. And I would not want to live there. So stick around. I don't know if I have any more videos today, but if I do, they'll pop up.